Hi, everybody, and welcome to our Fierce Friday call. My name is Shari, and I've been with the Million Mom Movement since October, almost a year now. And I'm joined by my amazing council member, co-council member, Allison. And we also have Naeva, who couldn't be here, but she's always in the background making everything happen for us. We appreciate, even though she couldn't be on the call, that she jumped on to get us all set up. I'm really happy that everybody is here today. I'm loving how many people are coming on this call because this is such an important one. It's a topic that I think that has touched us all in one way or another. We either know somebody who is dealing with ADHD, or we've heard of somebody who is. You just have to take a step into one classroom in one school anywhere across the world, and there's I'd say at least one, if not several, diagnosis of ADHD per classroom today. And that's pretty alarming. And of course, we know that regular treatments for ADHD don't normally talk or deal with or suggest nutrition. And that's really unfortunate. And so that's what our call is going to be about today. We're going to talk about nutrition and how it can best support a diagnosis of ADHD. We're also going to hear some really powerful testimonials as usual. And we're going to dive deep into that. But before we get started, we have our pledge to read. And so what we normally do is we ask somebody on the call if they would be willing to read our pledge. Kind of have to put you on the spot, which I don't like doing. So feel free to say no. But I was going to see if Stephanie would be willing to read the pledge today. I have to get you to unmute. 1 minute. Okay. Okay, there you
go. Okay. Hold on, Nick. I gotta call you back. I love you.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. I heard Stephanie. My daughter just called. So what was the question?
I was asking you if you would be willing to read our pledge today.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
I pledge to defend the health of myself and my family. I pledge to choose organic foods that are minimally processed and free of man-made ingredients. I pledge to read labels and educate myself on all aspects of clean living. I understand that my actions today will positively impact the health and environment of future generations. I am committed to sharing this movement of many. I am the Million Mom Movement.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And if I can further put you on the spot, can I just ask you, as my screen takes over, sorry. Can I just ask you to share a little bit of what that pledge means to you?
Oh my God, I am on the spot. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Okay. What it means
or
to
just
me
what
is,
comes to mind. What comes to mind when you read that pledge?
That we provide people looking for the purest, most, God, why am I on the spot? Oh my God, I'm losing words, guys.
Oh, you're doing great.
But to give to provide that for people that were like in my situation. I dealt with a lot of health issues. So, and then I have ADHD really bad. But this like Purium is became like life to me. Like it's a lifeline. I've had a lot of trouble trying to get it through to people. I mean, I just recently kind of crashed with it again with a relationship. So it's like, it's just, it's really difficult to try to get past people's, I guess their belief system. I think it's more of a belief system, and it seems like it's not true or it's not real. So trying to get somebody to understand that, it's been very difficult, very difficult. Anytime I go anywhere, I preach Purium. Like, oh, you have amazing energy. That's Purium. You look out younger every time I see you. That's Purium. They don't jump on. So that's been my experience.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people can relate to that. I'm really happy that you're here because a community like this, you'll hear that often, and you'll also be able to hear like how people have overcome that, right? And got to a place of really being able to attract people who are ready for it. Because so often I think that we go after, like we want to help everyone because we found something that just is beyond anything else we've ever tried, and it's created such an impactful transformation. And we want to scream it from the rooftops. And unfortunately, not everybody is in the place of being ready to hear it, right? Let alone take the steps to, because the system is there, but you have to step into it, right? And not everybody's willing or ready to do that just yet. And so you'll see, the more you share it, the more you take the superfoods, the more your energy is going to be just so contagious, and you'll start to attract the people who are absolutely ready for it. And then you know what? Some of the ones who weren't ready for it, they see you keep sharing, they see you keep talking about it. A lot of them do come around eventually and say, okay, well, I want, I want what she's having, because clearly it's working for her. So thank you for being here. And thank you. I'm sorry I put you on the spot, but that was great.
You're
Thank
fine.
you so much.
You're fine. Thank you.
Okay. And so, I mean, I can relate. I know we can all relate to Stephanie, what she was saying about just even how she's been feeling, right, since she started taking these superfoods. For myself, I am a holistic nutrition and health coach by profession, but first and foremost, I'm a mom. And so, finding this community of the Million Mom Movement, even though mom is not just for moms, right? The mom in Million Mom Movement stands for movement of many. It was just huge for me as a mother to find a community like this. I love how we as a community create awareness, how we help each other out. We talk about becoming conscious consumers, which is so important because we're quite literally paving the way for our children. Whether you have kids of your own or not, doesn't matter, right? Because we are paving the way for future generations. And one of the ways that we get to do that in such an impactful way is choosing and voting with our dollar. And so we decide so much based on the foods that we choose, the supplements that we choose, right? The companies that we stand behind. And there's nothing cleaner, greater, more powerful than these incredible superfoods. Trust me, I have, as a holistic coach, it's my job to research and try it all. I never recommend anything that I haven't tried myself, and nothing's ever even come close. And so now pivoting over to our subject of the day, ADHD and nutrition. As I was saying earlier, I know that most of us, I don't know really anyone who has not been touched by it in one way or another, or knows of somebody who has, and so has seen somebody struggle through the journey of a diagnosis like ADHD. Years before I became a mom and a holistic health coach, I was a daycare educator. And so I remember as a teacher coming across it so often in my preschool classes with kids many already had that diagnosis as early as like 2 or 3 years old. And some were showing some signs that, the daycare director at the time was like jumping on. It's like, okay, this one should be tested. She should be tested. He should be tested. Bringing in parents, having those conversations. And as the teacher of the classroom, I was always part of those conversations. And I just felt a little hopeless. I remember as a teacher that, there's not so much, you're almost like just sending these kids off to go get, a label and then subsequent medication. But nobody really empowers them. They're not really learned how to empower themselves. The fact that our nutrition plays such a huge role in every aspect of any diagnosis, ADHD included. By not really focusing on that, I feel like so many have missed the mark, right? We've missed the mark in terms of how we go about, um, I was going to say treating a diagnosis, but it's not even about treating a diagnosis. It's about really just focusing in on what's going on in the body that a diagnosis like that was able to happen, right? And when you look at that, when you look at it from that perspective, instead of just trying to treat symptoms, then you see why and where the body was out of balance. And yes, even children's bodies, clearly, as we're seeing today, because more and more diagnoses are happening, that imbalances happen, and imbalances can happen in children, especially when you look at what the amount of toxins that we're being exposed to today. Which actually, as I'm saying toxins, Allison, I'm remembering that we had a news piece, right? That you wanted to share. You want to go ahead and share that before I continue?
Yeah, Jared will do that share a little bit
Perfect.
because I don't know how to work the whole technology of this.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah.
So this article here is showing links between glyphosate exposure and the rising ADHD cases. So just a quick summary. There's a study in here that explores the potential link between glyphosate, which is a widely used herbicide, and the rise of ADHD. Researchers analyzed state-level data on glyphosate use, nitrogen fertilizer use, and ADHD hospitalizations from 2007 to 2010. They found that increased glyphosate use significantly predicts higher ADHD hospitalization rates, especially in urban areas. The study also highlights a strong association between glyphosate and nitrogen fertilizer use. The researchers suggest possible mechanisms for how glyphosate may contribute to ADHD, considering environmental and biochemical factors. So I'll throw this link in the chat here if anyone wants to read more about it.
Yeah, that's a great share.
That's so, thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Jared. It's so important because that's actually why I remembered it is here. We're talking about toxins being one of the biggest factors for any type of imbalance in the body, right? And we're just exposed to more toxins today than ever before in our history. And we have to, we have to become aware of the fact that those toxins are doing something in the body, right? Or they're adding up, especially when we're talking about glyphosate. Glyphosate is something that the body doesn't know how to detoxify on its own, and it quickly adds up in the system. I know that before I became a holistic nutrition and health coach, I had heard about glyphosate, but I didn't think that it was something that we really needed to be so concerned about. I thought that maybe it was a bigger problem in the States than where I am in Canada, but really it's a problem no matter where you are in the world. And the fact it's a water soluble toxin, great for the company, not great for us because it's more easily spread. And so that's why right now it's in 75% of our food, it's in the air that we breathe, it's in our water, it's in our grass, it's everywhere. And we all need to be aware of it, not fear it, but be aware of it and know that there are solutions, there are ways that we can protect ourselves and detoxify from it. And this is why when we look at the world today, we see that, this is becoming a bigger issue, and it's no coincidence that it's correlating with more and more diagnosis of things like ADHD. And so fast forward to when I became a health coach, it was one of the areas that was very interesting to me that I really did extra research in. I have a specialization in children's health and nutrition. And one of the things that came up so often for me in the first year or two of my practice was families who were dealing with ADHD, usually newly diagnosed in children. Now, ADHD is not only seen in childhood, obviously, right? And a diagnosis can be made much later on, even in adulthood. But it is something that's so prevalent with our kids. And it's something that as I worked with families, I started to see certain things that came up each time. And some of those were some very specific nutrient deficiencies. So when we look at a diagnosis like ADHD, one of the things that comes to mind is because, first of all, and mainly because of the amount of toxins that people are being exposed to, it's affecting our gut microbiome, right? And how well our gut microbiome can work for us, and how it can absorb, how it can break down foods and nutrients and minerals, and how it can properly distribute them throughout the body. Because of that, often people are deficient in key vitamins and minerals, and our children are no exception to this rule, unfortunately. You add in that and a lack of omegas, which are very important for brain development, okay? Another thing about the gut microbiome is that it's where our serotonin is produced, serotonin being our mood regulating hormone. And so if our serotonin is being produced in our gut and then being sent to our brains, which is something that we don't technically, we tend to think of as serotonin being produced in the brain, but it's not. It's produced in the gut and then sent to the brain. Well, if your gut microbiome is not optimal, then what's the quality of that serotonin being produced, right? And so when we look at anything, any diagnosis has to do with brain and brain development, and mental disorders that we look at, we have to look at the nutrients for the brain, the hormones that are being produced. What is the quality? Is it optimal? Where is the imbalance coming from, right? And so when we start to look deeper and we see that the gut microbiome always plays a role, and then, the quality of your serotonin, well, then we're going to start to understand that it starts to create a situation where there's deficiencies. And so some of the very specific vitamin and mineral deficiencies that are often associated with ADHD is magnesium. Magnesium is a big one. Many, many studies find that people being diagnosed with ADHD often are depleted in magnesium. Now, magnesium is a mineral that the body goes through super quickly, no matter whether you have a diagnosis or not. And it can be depleted from stress, from lack of sleep, if you've just fought off a virus, a cold, etc. There's so many reasons. If you play sports, there's so many reasons that our magnesium gets depleted very quickly. And so that's one to look at, especially with a diagnosis of ADHD. There's also zinc and vitamin D Iron is another one. Actually, there was a study that found that people with ADHD had lower levels of brain iron concentrations than somebody without a diagnosis of ADHD. So iron is another one that we may not have necessarily associated with ADHD, but it's definitely one to pay attention to. And then there's the omegas, like I had mentioned, super important for our brain health, right? Those are the healthy fats. So brain development is huge. There's many times throughout childhood and then adolescence where brain development is at its peak. And so it's so important that we think of really nourishing healthy fats for the brain, for our kids, and then for anybody dealing with this diagnosis to increase those healthy fats in your diet. And then there's the probiotics, which makes complete sense, right? We talked about how the gut microbiome plays a role in this diagnosis. So of course we want to ensure that we're not just giving or taking probiotics, but we want to ensure, of course, that we are looking at the overall health of our gut microbiome. Because if your gut microbiome is not healthy, then a probiotic alone is not going to do anything. We need more than that. We need to detoxify it. We need to help heal it, essentially, right, from all of the damage that's been caused. And we know that our biomedic is our best line of defense for that. And then the last one, which is really important to mention, are trace minerals. So yes, I spoke about magnesium separately because that's a really big one linked to a diagnosis of ADHD, but trace minerals in general. And actually it's been found that minerals work best synergistically, which means all together, taking them all together. And that's why ionic elements is such a great addition for somebody who is dealing with this diagnosis as well, because it's going to help ensure that you're getting a good amount of your trace minerals on a daily basis. Super important. One more thing that I want to mention in terms of nutrition would be micronutrients. Okay, so those, we generally lack micronutrients on a daily basis, as we know that only 1% of the world's food is truly organic, which means that not just is it truly organic, but the quality of that food, right, the amount of nutrients in it are going to be significantly higher than the other 99% of our food, which is so crazy to think about. Because of what's sprayed in our soil today, when it's not organic, we have to understand that our food is now lacking about 75% of the nutrients that it once contained. And that's going to be, again, huge and part of that vicious circle of what happens in terms of our health, right? Because if you are, let's say you go to eat baby spinach. So the amount of baby spinach that you would need to eat today in a day to get your daily vitamins from it, vitamins and minerals from it. Well, a couple of decades ago, it would have been one portion, let's say, of spinach. Today, it's about 25. So when we start looking at our food in that sense, because of what's being sprayed on our soil, it's quite literally killing the gut microbiome of our soil, which means the amount of nutrients in the foods that are being grown are nowhere near what they used to be. And of course, our bodies mirror nature, right? So whatever happens to nature is happening to us. And so glyphosate and other pesticides, herbicides are doing the exact same thing in our bodies that it's doing to our soil. So not only is our gut microbiome being damaged by the glyphosate that we're ingesting in our food. And so it makes it that our gut microbiomes cannot properly absorb any nutrients that we are actually able to eat, but the food itself is now lacking as well because of the glyphosate. So it's a two-edged sword that we need to be aware of. And again, this is why these superfoods should not just be our supplementation. They should be, I argue, the basis of our nutrition on a daily basis, because that's how we, quote unquote, beat the system, right? That's how we ensure that we're getting all of those nutrients in on a daily basis. And so back to what I was saying earlier about micronutrients, micronutrients are also, there's a link between a lack of micronutrients and a diagnosis of ADHD. That's most likely because we're, when we're saying micronutrients, we're looking on a larger scale. And we're talking again of all the different vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, healthy fats that the body is lacking. And so we really have to start shifting from a, this is ADHD. And so, you have trouble focusing. So we're going to give you something that's going to help you focus. It's like, no, we have to start looking at ADHD as a deficiency in key vitamins and minerals. And again, this is that empowerment factor, right? Because we get to do something about that. There's so much that we can do about it. And to start creating an environment within the body where it can thrive with ADHD. And everything that I mentioned here is obviously needed for normal brain development, which again is why we're talking about a deficiency on a very large scale. And so with that, I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to pass it over to Allison, because I know that Allison not only has a lot of experience in this, but I mean, she has a lot of experience in it because it's touched her personally. So,
Thank
Allison.
you so much, Shari. Wow, that was so informative. And yeah, we'll create a list of everything Shari just spoke about there. I think a lot of people have been asking in the chat, so that's all gonna be available. I wish there would be a Shari in my life, or all of this in my life, like when I was a kid and diagnosed. This is something, no one my whole life ever talked about what I was eating or what nutrients I was missing to, help me, to support me in that way. And so I was the classic, that classic 90s diagnosis, I guess, because I think there was a lot of diagnoses in our generation. I think they're still going, I think they're actually increased, and they've just been increasing, and it kind of was like a huge well, I was the first person I knew who was diagnosed. So I was diagnosed at 5 years old, and I was put through so many assessments my whole life, like if it was my hearing or my auditory processing or whatever it was, they were always trying to figure it out. And then I was diagnosed with ADD. So getting diagnosed with ADD was a gateway for a lot of not so good things in my life. I was so happy and loved who I was before. I never saw it as a problem. It was only school that made that to be a problem, that said I was a problem. You can't judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, right? We can't have everyone's not gonna be good at everything. So they made it seem like math and following instructions and doing paperwork are going to be the most important things in life. Turns out they're not. Ritalin made me less social, less funny, less creative, and I didn't feel like drawing or doodling when I was on it. These were all my strengths before, and in my opinion, way more valuable skill sets than everything I listed above before. Yes, my grades improved, which made school, the teachers, and my parents happy, but my social ability and art and everything that made me confident in myself suffered. There's also a social component to this diagnosis as well. So not just, so there's this, I was put with the bad kids in school. You're kind of lumped when you have learning disabilities, or you're not a good student, you're put at the bad kids classes. And so that was my influence. So I obviously fell in with the bad kids, and my confidence was so low, and it carried on through my teens and 20s all the way up. So it's something that definitely part of my huge part of my healing journey. So I was medicated before anything was looked at, right? Like, I mean, I was in therapy. They had me with some specialists. My grandmother was a childhood psychiatrist. So she actually put me with the best, and they meant so well. I know they loved me. They're my grandmother, and she loved me, and my parents loved me. And this is no attack on, it's a systemic problem. And it's a trust that they brainwashed, this generation of so many generations now of parents and people to not trust themselves, to trust just the experts, and to not question or advocate. Like that was kind of like, oh, I don't know, my mom, I know she loves me, she would never want to harm me, but she trusted the experts. So when I didn't want to be on Ritalin. I tried it a few times. They tried to get me on it, and I didn't like it. But at one point, when I was hitting into high school, they made it mandatory that I take Ritalin or I can't be in school. So I was forced to take it, and my agenda signed every day, morning and lunch, 10 milligrams in the morning, 10 milligrams at lunch. And I'm a small girl. I was like 100 pounds, growing up. It made me lose my appetite. It made me sweat. I had like weird sweat things going on. I would get really anxious. I couldn't sleep at night, and it really impaired my social abilities. So I became kind of like socially anxious, which was never who I was. So I'm very passionate about empowering, actually. So when Purium came into my life, Taz, who shared it with me, she was like, you can heal yourself, like just having something give it to you with not like, this is going to heal you. No, like, this is not going to be your crutch. I was still taking Ritalin up until the time that Purium came into my life because I was that dependent. I couldn't keep a job. I would get fired. Jared knows because I worked with Jared a few times. I could not. Well, here, Jared, you want to share a little how it is to live with someone with
For
crippling
sure.
ADD?
So I didn't know about it. I thought it would only affect children when we first started dating. And then I saw that she was taking Ritalin before she had to go on a job or something like that, where she needed to focus. And we just totally normalized it. What happens is, like, you can tell she's thinking like 1,000 different things at the same time, spinning all these different plates and not really doing anything at all. So a lot of things would go unfinished, like she leaves cupboards open, drawers open all the time, comfortable in that kind of chaos. And I'm OCD, so I can't
Why I
relax and
chose
everything is
Jared.
me. So yeah, we complement each other well. But just that idea that we're all exposed to this toxic environment, and glyphosate depleting minerals like that. It's
But
just,
like, how's it working with me? Like,
working.
just
Oh yeah.
working, because Jared worked with me. I just wanted that, just a little testimony of what it
Okay.
was like.
Yeah, working with you was not easy. I was covering for her a lot. Just simple tasks like a spreadsheet, filling out numbers in a spreadsheet, just could not get it done. So
I would have panic attacks. I would have nervous breakdowns. Like, I would just turn into a child, like a meltdown. And I couldn't function. I couldn't function in the outside world a lot of the time. And I just, I was then later prescribed all these other medications. And I really say ADD and the Ritalin was my gateway into all these other mental health brackets, because then later on, I developed the anxiety, the sleep disorders, even my, like I said, I didn't have an appetite. So, like, people even thought I was an eating disorder, but I wasn't. I just really had no appetite. And when and then diagnosed with depression, anxiety, and put on medication for all those things. So by the time I was in my 30s, I was on 5 different medications. And I think it was just a gateway. And it was just a gateway of that disempowerment, not having trust in ourselves and our abilities and why we're here, because we have important gifts, and how ADD is a superpower. Because actually now, since this gut repair came into my life, until it did its work on me, and it detoxed my gut and repaired things and created new neural pathways that had been so severe, so damaged, I never thought I would get back, it changed everything. And look, I'm super successful now. I'm super high functioning. I'm able to face things that are hard without having a childlike meltdown. And it's just so important that everyone knows there are options. I'm not going to say that everyone, okay, if you need, I cannot say, I guess, you won't need medication if you do this, because I'm not allowed. But what this can do is at least give you support to it wasn't fast that I got off my medication. It wasn't like, oh, I feel better, I'm getting off. I gradually got off. I was very, responsible with that. Felt it very intuitively when it was time to reduce and get off. And it wasn't fast. I started Purium in October of 2018, and it wasn't until February that I was completely off all my medication. So it took me a few months. But I'm 5.5 years of no medication, and just thriving, and wanting everyone to know that this is the root of all our mental health, and that there's solutions, and that there's just so much support out there. And that also as a career choice for people who fall through the cracks of the system, who are, marginalized and can't function. It's like in corporate kind of systems, it's like, this is just another healing modality, is this business for people like us. So
I'm really glad we found this, because ADHD and other neurodegenerative issues, like autism, these can be superpowers if nutrition is taken into account, and they're supported, and there's community involved. Allison, thinking about 1,000 different things now is of our benefit. It shouldn't be a handicap. It's not something to be frowned upon. If it's treated like this in a positive way, it could be a superpower.
yes,
for sure.
it really can. And I'm working on healing my art brain, because that was just, I'm getting back to that. And I want to say, if I started the ULT with ionic elements and fulvic zeolite, Now there's fulvic zeolite or Craxel chlorella. If you have been medicated, I highly recommend detoxing heavy metals as well. So everything Shari said, but I'm going to also add, if you've been medicated, to be detoxing heavy metals. And I take Revividol. I take the dark berry protein shake every day because it's not just a protein shake. It's got nootropics. If you don't know what that is, look it up. NOOTR, nootropics, look it up. And it's from actually, there's nootropics in blueberries. And so there's, and also the adaptogen mushrooms, there's lion's mane, and there's amino acids and the gut support in that shake. So that's like, we kind of label it protein. It's so much more than that. And also, aminos really help. They really, really help. And if you really need to focus, I'm telling you, can't beat this and aminos. Wait just a few minutes, you'll see you're ready. You can do anything. So that's what I want to share. So we had some shares from other people, and Shari, do you want to welcome Megan to share? I know.
Yeah, I could absolutely. So Megan, I'm just gonna ask you to unmute. There we go. Oh, oh no. Oh, no. You're muted. 1 second.
Good. I thought I pressed unmute. I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay.
So I have 5 children, and my oldest son, who's now 17, when he was about 3, 4, I kept going to the doctor. I'm like, there is something with this kid. Like, this kid is off the charts. Like, so much energy is just zooming around. I couldn't bring him to Walmart shopping with him. He would be on the top shelf of the toilet paper where they keep it all the way up there. I'd be like, where's my son? And he'd be calling me from up there. Like, he was just very all over the place. And so we went to the doctor, and I had talked to them about not wanting to do medication. I didn't want to do medication. And so he hooked us up with a behavioral therapist, and the behavioral therapist had both of us in there. And he watched my son, and he talked to me, and he said, okay, he's a handful after 15 minutes. He said, let's reschedule and you will come back alone. And so I went back alone, and he really did encourage me to think about medicating him. At that point, he was only like 4. So I was like, I'm not medicating a 4-year-old. Like, that's out of the question. And then when he started school, it really did turn out that, I'm sorry, someone's at my business. It really did turn out that the teachers were noticing that he's not sitting still. He's not able to pay attention. And they were really pushing medication at every single appointment. Have you talked to his doctor about medication? So I make another doctor appointment. My doctor said to me, if he was, I'll get emotional because of what this did to my children. If he was diabetic, would you withhold insulin from him? And I was like, oh my gosh, no, I wouldn't, like that. And so we started him off on 10 milligrams, and then 20 milligrams, and then 30 milligrams. And by the time he was 11 years old, he was on 60 milligrams of Adderall in the morning. I'm sorry. And a 20 milligram kicker at night. And he was the thinnest, skinniest little thing. He wasn't sleeping. And so then the doctor prescribed him a medication to help slow his heart rate down so that he could sleep. It was a blood pressure medication for an 11-year-old. And then we had some other health issues going on, and he started passing out daily. And I was like, okay. At the same time, we had my other son, who was 3 years younger, assessed, and he too was on 60 milligrams of Adderall with a 10 milligram kicker in the afternoon. And I was taking the same dose. And so if you add all that up, it's 210 milligrams of freaking Adderall a day in one house for 3 of us. My son, I wanted to share this picture, and I don't know how to screen share, but there's my little Owen at 9 years old, and he weighed 45 pounds. We were doing blood work to figure out what was wrong with him. And at that point, I was like, I am taking everyone off of medication. I was super sick at the time. What I didn't realize was that, like Sherry pointed out, and like Allison pointed out, like, these are vitamin and mineral deficiencies. And then you go ahead and you add a prescription on top of that. And that's taking even more vitamins and minerals away just out of nature. Anything that we put into our bodies, that's a chemical. Our body sends out magnesium, and to deal with it. And so magnesium is needed for every single synapse in the body. And so I didn't realize, and then Adderall makes you not want to eat. I mean, I was 135 pounds, like I was so happy, but like I was not eating and I wasn't getting nutrition. And then this just kind of spiraled into, by the end of it, I was on 6 medications. My children were on 2. And so I pulled everyone off of everything because we were all getting so sick. I got a lot of backlash from the school. I had them call CPS on me. And that was kind of my first introduction to herbs. Was I was doing research on, I am an herbalist. I was doing research on ADHD and what I could do to help. And I found Bacopa was an herb that would help. And so I started giving my 10-year-old Bacopa at school, and his teacher called the first day and was like, I don't know what you did if you switched medications, but he was excellent today. And so we kept doing that. And then for my other son, L-tyrosine worked, which is an amino acid, and that helped him. And then I got into doing more research and realized that, hey, like maybe food dyes are the problem. Like I'm seeing all these researches of food dyes. So we cut the food dyes out. We cut the processed food out. We cut quite a few things out, and they really changed. And then last year I was introduced to Purium. And so we had stuck with the diet changes and the food changes, and we added in Biomedic in the morning, the amino acids in the morning, and the Epigenius family shake for breakfast. This year was the first year they were 16 and 14 when I did that. And last year was the first year I got a letter from the school congratulating me on Austin being on honor roll. So I just want to say that I know that it's so important to address the actual issue, the root cause, to heal the gut so that it can absorb the nutrients, and to be able to put in things that will actually bring about health, not take away health. Like there's no way to fix something if we're taking away as well. But I'm glad that they can go into this in the future, knowing that like if they support their bodies, that these things that they deal with won't be a thing. And I am forever grateful for the journey that we went on, because it's going to prevent my grandkids from going through the same thing. It's going to prevent my kids from going through the same thing, the same heart pain that I feel for putting all these things into them, thinking that I was doing the right thing. So we can't do better until we know better. And I hope that this helps some of you make a better choice on what we decide to put into our children. Put all the good in, and they'll flourish.
Oh my gosh, Megan, thank you so much for sharing all of that. When you said what you said about the doctors asking you if your child was diabetic, would you withhold insulin? That one hit me hard because my son is diabetic. And even in a case like that, it's like they're offering you something synthetic, and it's like, well, it's this or nothing, and and you do what you have to do, but yet at the same time, you do all that you can to help balance the scales back in favor of health, right? And that's where we get to empower ourselves, no matter what the diagnosis. I'm so happy that you have come such a long way from there, and all that. I can't even begin to imagine what kind of journey that was, but thank you for sharing it. And I'm so happy that you are where you are, and that your entire family are all doing so well. Ellison?
Yes, thank you so much, Megan. Wow, it's so powerful to hear from someone who, to change, like when we know something, when we know better, we do better. And just to show there's always hope. I was on Ritalin I was on 20 milligrams for 20 years, and the fact that I can still heal my brain. I feel so much for you, what you went through with your son, my daughter, actually, when just before Purium came into our life, I was getting the same, the teachers wanting to speak to me about Rhea's attention and her ability to like follow instructions, all the same things that I remember my parents hearing from teachers. Like I was hearing from her, and this was in her kindergarten teacher. And when we started to change our diet and heal with, this food and just put in good stuff, night and day difference. Like there is no symptom, there's no chance she like it's just like she's so, I don't even understand who she, like how she is the way she is. It's just amazing. But it's really changes everything. I wanted to, yeah, I wanted to bring on, if Kara is here. Kara, you here still? Yay. Okay. Sorry to put Kara on the spot. I just asked her today if she would like to share, because I know Kara's story a little bit. I've watched her since she came in and watched her thrive. So I thought, Kara, if you can share your story with how this, how this food has changed your ADHD.
Yes, thank you very much, Allison, for inviting me to share my story on this platform. And my story is very different because I was diagnosed as an adult, and I have been dealing with this with no medication at all. So thank you. So like I said, I was officially diagnosed with ADHD later in my adult life, only about 8 or 9 years ago. It actually dawned on me when someone very close to me was diagnosed, and I said, "Hey, wait, that's me." So then I went and had it looked into. So even as a child, I struggled with focus and concentration. My mind constantly wandered, and my best efforts, despite my best efforts to engage. This was like the early 80s. So when I confided in my parents, ADHD was neither well understood nor openly discussed. So my struggles were brushed aside. I don't believe it was because my parents were neglecting me in any way. They just simply didn't know better. But the impact was really profound for me. I believe, I really truly believe something was wrong with me. Um, School was very difficult. I had a hard time listening and taking in what was being taught and just keeping up. So this affected my grades. I had to have a lot of extra tutoring. So I was working really, really hard just to keep up with my peers. And there was in this belief that something was wrong with me caused me very low self-esteem and depression and anxiety, and it strained my relationships, leading to impulsive and unloving decisions and challenges as I grew older. So as an adult, my difficulties only intensified. Everything got worse. My depression, my self-worth, all of it got worse. And my mind would scatter. I would start a task and jump to another. I would think of something else that I had to do, and I would stop what I was doing, go do it, and it would just keep piling up. And something like cooking, for example, I would not be able to just stand there and watch. I would get very impatient. My mind would race, and I would go do something else. So, of course, I would forget that I was cooking. And the stove would, whatever was cooking on the stove would burn or boil over. So another reason I love Purium, I don't have to worry about that anymore. I also struggled with having conversations with people. No matter how interested I was, there were times my mind would just drift off when I was listening to them, and I would always get really embarrassed because I wouldn't know what they said, and I would feel terrible about it. I didn't want them to think I wasn't interested in them. That's not the case at all. But anyway, I would lose my train of thought. I struggle with word retrieval, and my stories were all over the place and would be disjointed. I often found myself overwhelmed by the tasks I juggled, only to shut down, escape, and daydream, or mindlessly scroll through social media. I went in between procrastinating and being hyper focused, and it was just mentally exhausting living this way. I knew I had to change something, but I was hesitant to turn to medication just personally for me because my past experiences with pharmaceuticals that I were on for other reasons were negative experiences. And I felt they didn't align with the direction I wanted to go. I really just wanted to get to the root cause and find natural ways to repair my brain, because after extensive research, I discovered the powerful link between gut health and brain function, realizing how deeply our diet impacts not just our physical, but our mental well-being, our brain functioning. So I made significant changes. I started swapping out my foods for more organic whole foods, more nutrient-rich foods. I cut out dairy, and these things helped a lot, but they only scratched the surface. I still needed to make a lot of diet and lifestyle changes, but I was getting very discouraged. Then about 3 years ago, my prayers were answered, and Purium came into my life through a family member who was using it. I was so desperate for a breakthrough, I decided to try the ULT, and it was the best decision I made in my life, because flooding my body with all this nutrition really gave me amazing results and changed my world. My brain fog lifted, my focus sharpened, my memory improved. And then as over time, I expanded my toolbox to include Revive It All, dark berry protein, the pineal clear, and in focus I use a lot. I give it to my daughter as well, alongside, you know, the aminos and Can't Beat This and the core 4 products. So these additions have helped me reclaim a sense of presence both with myself and others, and today I can manage my task more efficiently and effectively, feeling more organized and capable than ever before. So I truly believe this lifestyle, with the right nutrition and community as well, has led to a much more positive mindset and focus, and I just feel more grounded. So it's really making it possible to overcome the challenges, and like Allison said, use it as my superpower. Now I'm able to multitask and get things done, but I have a clear head about it. So it's really cool. It's my story. Thank you.
Thank you, Kara. Wow, you did amazing. Kara was so nervous before she, and I'm just like, wow, Kara, I know you are here for such big things to share your story. And I want to just also brag, you're in school now, you're taking on, like courses, and you're working your Purium business, and you're doing all kinds of things. You're working another job. Like, I'm just so impressed with you and your mom, and, just be so proud of yourself. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. I just wanted to say, because what Megan was saying and I forgot, it just came into my head, that, how doctors say it's like, it's totally safe, and they'll say this like little thing. So I think with you, they said it was like, as safe as, you said.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute. Yeah, he said if your son was diabetic,
Oh, yeah.
would you withhold insulin?
Right. I just want everyone to know that is such manipulation to just know, like they told me and this was the words exactly, I'll never seared in my head since I'm 10 years old. It says, if you had astigmatism, would you not put on glasses? It's as safe as just wearing glasses just for your brain. So I just commend you also, Kara, to know, like, you can do it without medication. And you know what? We have to find our gifts in this weird way that we think it's okay. It's all welcome in this world. It's so important. And that as long as we have the right support, we really, really can use ADD, ADHD as our superpower. Back to you, Shari.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kara. That was amazing. That was such a great share, very powerful. Thank you so much for doing that, for sharing with us. It wasn't easy. It's not always easy. I remember my first couple of calls, Kara, I was extremely nervous, but you were awesome. Thank you. And everybody needs to hear your story, so keep sharing it, okay? Allison, something that it made me think of, that I was listening to say, I love how you always say that it's a superpower, right? And it's here for a reason, and what can I do with it? And I remember that from the very first time that I heard your story about ADHD. I remember you saying that, and it really impacted me, because I do believe that everything happens for us, not to us, right? And it's a very big mind shift to have to make. Because again, that, part of our conditioning and part of our sort of limited beliefs that we grow up with, it's hard for us to open our minds up to that way of thinking, right? But to see it that way and know that, this is happening for us. So first of all, before anything else, I believe that it's an opportunity for us for someone diagnosed with this, it's an opportunity for you to detoxify, cleanse, right? Address the vulnerability, the root cause of why this was able to happen in the first place, right? Why was your body vulnerable to this and what happened? And then once you get to do that, well, then from there, the sky's the limit, right? Because now you get to share your story, you get to help other people. And I can't think of a better thing than that. And to be quite honest, like everyone who spoke today, everyone who shared on the call today, these labels, which was one of the parts of this that I still have a hard time with today, labeling kids, especially because they grow up with that label. No one on this call, to me, has a label of ADHD. Like, I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. And you're also strong and empowered. And it's that empowerment factor that's made a difference for all of you. And that's what I love to hear, because that's why I got into the work that I do. It's to empower people in their health. Because I remember as a kid and as a teenager and even a young adult, feeling so disempowered, right? And the idea of, even as a kid, I was in and out of the hospitals and doctors so often. And I never, even as a child, it didn't make sense to me to put my health in someone else's hands. I never felt safe. It never felt safe to me. And so it wasn't so much this idea of like, oh my gosh, it's the luck of the draw, whether you get diagnosed with something or not. It was more so the like luck of the draw in terms of like, will this person in a white coat be able to help me? Right. And I found it very hard to to rely solely on them. And so that's kind of what started my own health journey, was just starting to look things up. Like long before I went into the holistic health field, I just started to research and find different things and implement little things here and there within my lifestyle. And I started to see results, really, really strong results, actually. And so this is what really kicked off my journey years before I wound up going into holistic health. And then I saw that I wasn't feeling so anxious anymore. I wasn't, I wasn't needing to go to doctors and hospitals as much anymore. And with each time I felt more and more empowered. And so that's really what it's about. If there's one thing that this call, one message that this call could send out, it would be that, I would think, is that, we can all empower ourselves. The opportunity, the possibility is there. We have everything that we need within us. And we have so much more control over our health than we've ever been led to believe. And I think that all of these amazing stories today, these testimonials, is exactly that. It's proof of that. Allison, is there anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, I see. I have also one of these kind of ADD things is sometimes you want to interrupt people as they're speaking. I'm like, I lose my thought. I lose my thoughts.
I saw you going.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I want to say also to Kara, when she said, sometimes she forgets what she's saying halfway through, that happens to me even on calls like this. And so I just want us all to be so proud to be perfectly imperfect as we are, because the world needs to see people in leadership who are like, one of the reasons I love this company is just seeing Dave sometimes forget what he's saying halfway through a sentence and being like, oh, thank God, there's someone out there who could be imperfect out there. So yeah, and like the superpowers, like you said, it's like you get excited about things, like use that excitement. We get overly excited. Don't let anyone say you're, or we there's a lot of little quirks with certain some ADD things, but we can all find our voice and we can all be proud. We can all be really find our superpower. I just there was so many, like I know people were asking for all the different tools like that we use. And I just wanted to make sure, like, I wanted to just list the, like, Revive It All. I know Megan just listed there the ginseng. It gives you amazing energy. So we used to be addicted as ADD people, I'm sure you all can relate, to stimulants, because we all needed stimulants to stay focused. And so can't beat this in ginseng. And these are like, and aminos even, they really help without the like heavy caffeine. We can get that, those focus in place. So that's all I wanted to share. Thank you so much. And do you want to do the call to action, or I don't think we have it. I don't know.
I mean, I don't think we discussed one. I think we were just so excited and, talking about the plan of the call and the testimonials that we never got to it. But I mean, I think that, as simple but as impactful as we can ask is that everybody share this call as soon as it becomes available, right? And if you feel called to reach out to people or to go on your social media, maybe go live or on your stories or something like that, or you want to post about it, whatever you feel called to do after this call. I know there's a lot of emotion in this call. And so if you feel called to, talk about anything that you heard on this call that was impactful to you, then please do that. And like I said, as soon as the replay is available, we will absolutely share it. And then you can go ahead and share that. No, it's not what I wanted to share. 1 second. Just give me 1 sec. Here, that's what I want to share. So where can you tag us? Because anything that you share, please, please, please tag us. You can hashtag Million Mom Movement. I am the Million Mom Movement, or we are the Million Mom Movement. Naeva is a rock star at finding all of your posts and reposting them, sharing them in different ways. So please don't forget to tag us in whatever it is that you post about today's call and anything that you ever post really about health and nutrition and anything that you see in any of these Fierce Friday videos. And where you can like, follow, and share, well, you can like us on Facebook at the Million Mom Movement, and you can join our community. We have a Facebook group, the Million Mom Movement Official. That's where we repost all of these replays. And we will for sure in this repost be sure to add in the comment section everything that we recommended in terms of Purium and nutrition for ADHD, and even some of the things I had listed in the comment section about what to avoid, things to avoid. You can also follow us on Instagram and tag us in your stories and posts, like I said earlier. And don't forget, probably the most important is to subscribe to our YouTube channel, because that's where you also have the access to all of our replays. I remember, and I cannot say it enough, when I first joined Purium, I binge watched all of the earlier Million Mom Movement calls. I would listen to them while I was cooking, while I was folding laundry, while I was cleaning. Any chance I got, I was listening to one. They're such a wealth of information, great to share with other people as well.
Thanks so much. That was amazing. I mean, yeah, really quickly, I'd also add, having a physical movement every day really helps. Like, so make sure that you're moving your body, make sure that you're just taking care of your body's sleep and everything all together. So, but yeah, Purium this food is just life-changing. It's absolutely life-changing for the brain. Thank you.
It absolutely is. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Why did I do that? Sorry.